You're told to keep going, to wake up earlier, to journal more, to hustle harder, to reframe your thoughts, eliminate limiting beliefs, visualize your goals, and, above all, never stop pushing forward. That's the modern self-help narrative, one that's plastered across bookshelves, echoed in podcasts, and embedded in the very fabric of improvement culture. And if you've followed it, if you've tried to do everything right, only to end up in the same loops, the same emotions, the same patterns, you're not alone, because deep down you can feel it. That even after all the motivational mantras and daily routines, something fundamental hasn't shifted. You've read the books, you've made the vision boards, you've listened to the thought leaders, and yet when the noise fades, the internal conflict remains. Here's the truth no one tells you. You can't fix your life by treating it like a broken machine. Self-help as it's taught today assumes that you are a linear process, that if you input the right thoughts, behaviors, and disciplines, you'll output a new life. But you're not a robot. You're not a checklist. You are a living, breathing, energetically connected field of consciousness. And that field doesn't respond to checklists. It responds to frequency. The reason you feel like you're on a treadmill isn't because you're doing something wrong. It's because the game is rigged to keep you chasing outcomes instead of shifting identity. You've been programmed to believe in effort as the ultimate solution, that hard work is the great equalizer, that with enough discipline you can conquer anything. And sure, there's value in consistency. But here's the missing piece. If you are applying force from a misaligned identity, you're just reinforcing the very version of yourself you're trying to transcend. Most people never stop to question the underlying assumptions of self-improvement. They just accept them. That you need to become more. That change takes time. That you need to overcome your flaws. That success is out there, somewhere, waiting for you to arrive. But what if that entire model is based on a misunderstanding of how reality actually works? What if your life isn't just a sequence of events you grind through, but a mirror that reflects your internal frequency? What if the outcomes you're experiencing are not based on how hard you work, but how deeply you align? This is the invisible framework that governs your life, one that most people never see. It's not found in time management hacks or morning routines. It's rooted in how your consciousness interfaces with the quantum field. And that field is not passive. It's not just a backdrop. It's a responsive, intelligent matrix of energy, reacting not to what you want, but to what you are. This means that your results are not waiting at the end of your effort, they're matching the signal you're emitting right now. So if your energy is saturated in lack, even the most ambitious action will be filtered through that signal. If your identity is rooted in the belief that you must grind to be worthy, your effort becomes a reinforcement of unworthiness. You're not climbing out, you're digging deeper, just with better tools. It's like tuning a radio. You can scream all you want at 101.1 FM, demanding it play what's on 98.7, but the signal will only ever match what you're tuned into. No amount of noise will override that frequency. Effort isn't bad, but effort from misalignment is exhausting and ineffective. It's why you can try everything and still feel stuck, because the deeper mechanics of your life are not mechanical at all. They're energetic. Who's constantly chasing change with the belief that you're broken, you are entangling your identity with brokenness. Every step forward is also a step back. You begin to believe in the illusion of progress, a myth that says once I hit this milestone I'll finally feel free, while never addressing the inner state that keeps you orbiting the same outcomes. You may have noticed this pattern already, that every breakthrough is followed by a breakdown, that just when things start to go right, you sabotage, that no matter how much external success you build, it still doesn't feel like enough. That's not failure. That's feedback. It's the field telling you you're not aligned with what you're trying to create. You're trying to manifest love while feeling unlovable. You're trying to attract abundance while carrying the identity of someone who struggles. You're visualizing your dream life with the subconscious assumption that it's far away. And so the treadmill continues, not because you're lazy, not because you lack willpower, but because no one ever taught you that your outer life is just the echo of your inner state. Here's the radical idea. What if nothing external needs to change first? What if the real shift begins the moment you start to embody the version of you who already has the life you're chasing? This isn't a motivational slogan, this is physics. Quantum physics doesn't describe a world of fixed outcomes, it describes a world of probabilities, all existing at once with your observation, your attention, collapsing one possibility into reality. That means every version of you already exists. The broke you, the abundant you, the stuck you, the free you. Which one you live out depends not on effort but on entanglement. So the work isn't to push harder, the work is to become a vibrational match to the version of you who already lives your desired life. Not someday, not after more healing, not when you finally feel ready. Now. Because once you match that frequency, you no longer chase transformation, you transmit it. And the moment your transmission changes, your reality begins to rearrange, not out of magic but out of coherence. The illusion of progress shatters when you realize you were never meant to grind your way to freedom. You were meant to remember that you are already free. You just forgot how to tune into the version of you who already knows. And now it's time to remember. Everything you've been taught about reality starts with the assumption that it's solid, objective, and independent of you. That you're here to navigate a fixed world made of matter, where things happen to you in a predictable chain of cause and effect. You press a button, something reacts. You say the right words, life responds. You work hard, you get rewarded. At least, that's how it's supposed to work. But deep down, you've felt the cracks in that model. You've sensed that life isn't reacting to your actions the way it should. That effort doesn't always produce results. That sometimes things shift when you change your mind, and not the other way around. That's because reality is not what you think. It's not fixed. It's not separate. And it's not waiting for you to force it into shape. Modern physics, quantum physics, has shown us something that turns the old model upside down. At the most fundamental level, the universe is not made of solid stuff. It's made of probability. Everything you see, touch, feel, or experience is not built from blocks of matter, but from waves of potential. And those waves don't become solid until something collapses them. That something is you. Let that sink in, because it means reality isn't happening to you, it's responding to you. In the quantum world, particles do not have a fixed location, speed, or trajectory until they are observed. Until then, they exist in a cloud of infinite possibilities. This isn't metaphor, this is experimental fact. In the famous double-slit experiment, when no one is observing, particles behave like waves. They go through both slits at once, creating a field of probabilities. But the moment they're observed, they decide to become particles and land in one place. Observation collapses possibility into fact. And that collapse, that transformation from maybe to is, it doesn't happen out there. It happens because of you. So what does this mean for your life? It means that every moment is not a result of the past. It's a collapse of probability based on your present frequency. It means you're not stuck in a predetermined timeline. You're constantly selecting which reality to experience based on what you tune into. It means your attention is not passive, it's generative. Every thought, every feeling, every belief is not just reacting to life. It's helping define what version of life you're stepping into. You're not observing the world, you're entangled with it. Think of it this way. When you walk into a room full of people, you're not just seeing them. You're influencing what version of them shows up, based on your own internal state. If you expect conflict, you'll often find it. If you're open and loving, others soften. Coincidence or collapse of probability? Most people live as if reality is a machine, unchanging, indifferent, predictable. But that's Newton's world, and Newton was looking at billiard balls, not consciousness. In the quantum world, cause and effect gets blurry. Things don't happen in straight lines. They unfold in loops, in feedback systems, in entangled webs of intention and attention. The myth of objective reality falls apart the deeper you look. Because when you get to the smallest building blocks of existence, you find uncertainty. You find that particles can be in multiple states at once, that they don't take on a position until someone interacts with them. In other words, there is no solid world independent of the observer. The observer is part of the equation, and that observer is you. So why does this matter to your growth? Because if the structure of reality is probabilistic, then your current life isn't the only version available. There are infinite variations, timelines, outcomes, opportunities, all coexisting in a state of potential. And which one collapses into your experience depends on your internal state, not your external actions alone. You've been taught to believe in logic, planning, and hard effort, that if you work the system right, the system will reward you. But the quantum world reveals something very different. The system doesn't respond to your hustle, it responds to your signal, your frequency, your coherence. This is why two people can do the same thing and get radically different results. One is aligned vibrationally with what they're creating. The other is acting from scarcity, fear, or desperation. The action looks the same. The energy is completely different. And so the outcome shifts. You've probably experienced this without realizing it. The job interview where you were trying too hard. The date where you were overly anxious. The opportunity that fell through because, underneath the surface, you didn't believe you deserved it. That wasn't failure. That was frequency mismatch. Now, here's where the shift begins. When you stop seeing life as something you have to chase and start seeing it as something you select. You don't force reality into compliance. You harmonize with the version of it that matches your inner state. And when that alignment clicks into place, the universe begins to organize around your coherence. This is not wishful thinking, it's wave 4 dynamic collapse. And you don't have to understand quantum mechanics to use it. Just like you don't have to know how a radio works to tune it. But you do need to understand this. You are not separate from the world around you. You are inside the system. You are the system. So when you think, I'll be happy when I get that promotion, or I'll feel confident once I look a certain way, you are collapsing your timeline into one of delay. You're creating distance between yourself and your desire. You're saying, that version of me exists, but it's not now. And so the field listens, and it waits, and nothing changes. But if you instead begin to feel as though the version of you who already has the promotion, the relationship, the peace, is already alive inside you now, you collapse that version into form. You become entangled with it. You shorten the distance. You lock into a new version of reality. The quantum field doesn't care about time, it cares about coherence. And coherence is when your thoughts, emotions, and identity are aligned with the reality you want to experience. When you stop doubting. When you stop leaking energy into fear. When you stop observing the old and start embodying the new. This is how reality bends. And this is why objective cause and effect is a myth. Because you're not just reacting to the world. You're participating in its creation. You're not just watching the movie. You're projecting it. So the next time you feel like life isn't going your way, don't just ask, what do I need to do? Ask, what am I broadcasting? What probability am I collapsing? What version of me is showing up to receive this moment? Because the answers are already here. The field is listening. The signal is being sent. And the moment you change your observation, you change what becomes real. Two particles, once connected, then separated, now light years apart. And yet, when one changes, the other responds instantly. Not eventually, not gradually, instantly. This is not a theory, this is a documented phenomenon, verified through repeated experiments and met with both awe and resistance by some of the greatest minds in science. Albert Einstein famously called it spooky action at a distance, because it defied the known laws of space and time. To him, it was too strange to be real. But the universe doesn't ask for comfort, it offers truth, and the truth is this. Separation is an illusion. Quantum entanglement shows us that two particles, once linked, remain connected in such a way that the state of one determines the state of the other, no matter how far apart they are. You could place them at opposite ends of the universe, and yet, when you affect one, the other changes too. There's no signal being sent, no detectable energy traveling between them. The communication happens outside of time, outside of space, outside of anything our current instruments can measure. So, what does this have to do with you? Everything. Because you're not made of something different than those particles. Your brain, your body, your thoughts, your emotions are all composed of the same quantum building blocks, the same subatomic dance of possibility. Which means, whether you realize it or not, you are already participating in entanglement. And not just with objects, but with outcomes, beliefs, people, memories, and timelines. Let's bring this down from the abstract to the intimate. Think about someone you've loved deeply. Even when they're far away, you can sometimes feel their emotions. You sense when something's off. You get a gut feeling that something is wrong, only to find out they were going through something the moment you sensed it. It's not coincidence, that's entanglement. Or imagine this, you have a powerful thought about someone you haven't spoken to in years and they call you within minutes. Science shrugs and calls it anecdotal, but you know better. You've lived it. That invisible thread isn't imagination. It's resonance. What quantum entanglement teaches us is that once something is connected, it stays connected in ways we can't always see, but can always feel. And those connections extend beyond people. They include your past, your beliefs, your fears, your dreams, and, yes, your identity. You're entangled with who you believe you are. Every thought you repeat, every story you replay, every emotion you reinforce. That's a signal being broadcast into the field. That signal entangles you with certain outcomes, certain timelines, certain people. It's not that your future is random, it's that it's selected by the signal you're sending. And here's the deeper truth. Entanglement is not a choice. It's a default. You're already entangled with something right now. The question is, with what? Are you entangled with a version of yourself that struggles, that never has enough, that is always almost there but never arrives? Or are you entangled with the version of you who is clear, aligned, abundant, powerful, not someday, but already? That's the secret no one tells you. You don't have to create the life you want from scratch. You only have to entangle with the version of you who's already living it. This isn't a metaphor, it's mechanics, identity mechanics. When you wake up each day and replay the same emotional tone, when you think the same thoughts, feel the same feelings and behave in the same patterns, you're not just living a habit, you're syncing with a frequency. You're confirming your connection to that version of reality, and the field responds. It brings you the same kinds of conversations, the same frustrations, the same proof that reinforces what you already believe to be true, not because it's fate, not because you're cursed, but because you're entangled with it. It's why change often feels so hard, because you're trying to take new actions while staying linked to the same identity. It's like trying to paint a new picture on a canvas that keeps recreating the old one underneath. No matter how many strokes you add, the imprint of the old still bleeds through. This is where people give up. They try a new mindset, but it doesn't stick. They visualize a new life, but it feels hollow. Why? Because the entanglement hasn't shifted. They're broadcasting "I want change," while still embodying the self that doesn't believe it's possible. But when you shift that, when you begin to feel, think, and move as the version of you who has already arrived, you send out a different signal, and that signal begins to rewrite the field. It's not about pretending, it's not about faking it, it's about entrainment. You are syncing your internal system with a new blueprint, and once you do, the quantum mirror reflects it. Here's the irony. While science still debates how entanglement works, you've been living it your entire life. Every time you've felt someone's energy without a word, every time you've known something before it happened, every time your inner world seemed to ripple outward into the world around you, you were touching the web, feeling the code. You don't need more information, you need integration. Because entanglement is happening regardless of your belief in it. The only question is whether you'll use it intentionally, and that begins with awareness. When you observe your own thoughts, you collapse them into form. When you feel your emotions without judgment, you begin to reclaim the signal. When you stop identifying with the past and start choosing your frequency consciously, you begin to rewire your link. And here's what's beautiful. The field doesn't care how long you've been stuck. It doesn't care how many times you've failed. The moment you shift your state, it responds, not because it's trying to reward you, but because that's how it works. Change the entanglement, and the story has to change. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you're entangled with. So ask yourself now, not what do I want, but who am I linked to? Am I tuned into the version of me who doubts, who fears, who hesitates? Or am I syncing with the version of me who already lives the life I dream of? Because one of those versions is guiding your next step. One of those versions is pulling the strings. The field is always listening. What are you transmitting? You've probably felt it before. The sudden pull to call someone, only to hear from them moments later. The way a song plays at the exact moment you're thinking of a memory. The eerie timing of a person showing up in your life right when you needed them most, as if life orchestrated the entire encounter behind the scenes. You've chalked it up to coincidence, maybe even intuition, but deep down you've always suspected there was something more. And you were right, because none of it is random, none of it is accidental. It's all evidence of one undeniable truth. You are already connected. From the moment you have a thought, you are broadcasting. From the second you feel an emotion, you are sending a signal. These aren't abstract concepts or mystical ideas. They are energetic patterns, and they matter more than you've been taught to believe. Every thought you think is a frequency. Every emotion you feel is a vibration. Your entire internal world is pulsing with signals that ripple outward into the field you exist within. And just like a radio tower doesn't care if it's broadcasting music or static, the quantum field doesn't judge your signal. It simply reflects it. It organizes around it. It entangles with it. This means you're not isolated. You're not walking through a dead world waiting to be shaped. You are already in relationship with every person you've ever loved, every event you've ever replayed, and every possibility you've ever imagined. You are swimming in a living matrix of connection, and that matrix responds not to your words but to your vibration. This is why your energy enters a room before you do. Why some people make you feel heavy without saying a word, while others light you up by simply being near. It's not chemistry, it's coherence. It's the resonance of your field aligning, or clashing, with theirs. You've been taught that reality is made of matter, but matter is just energy slowed down. That means the real architecture of your life is not built from solid things, but from the unseen currents of emotion, intention, and attention. That's the real currency of creation. So when you carry unresolved anger, fear, or guilt, you are entangled with situations and people that match that state. Not because you're being punished, not because you're attracting bad vibes, but because the field is literal. It doesn't lie. It mirrors your dominant frequency, and that frequency is shaped most deeply by how you feel, not what you say you want. The problem is, most people don't realize how much of their energy is still tied to the past. You're not just thinking about the argument from last year, you're entangled with it. You're not just remembering the heartbreak, you're still broadcasting its frequency. And so similar situations, faces, and emotions show up again and again, not because you're cursed, but because you're still connected. Entanglement isn't an idea, it's a mechanism. And this mechanism explains more than just your external results. It explains your intuition, that subtle knowing, that gut feeling, the whisper you hear before something unfolds. You think it's magic. It's not. It's signal reading. You are already connected to the field, and the field contains information. When your mind is quiet enough, your intuition tunes into that data. That's why intuitive insight often feels like remembering something you never learned. You're not guessing, you're receiving. You can't access this when you're caught in overthinking, when your signal is noisy, when your internal state is chaotic. Intuition speaks through stillness, through resonance, and when you're in alignment, it becomes crystal clear. Now let's talk about synchronicity. When you think about someone and they call you, when the book you need falls into your lap, when the job opportunity appears the moment you decide to quit the one that's draining you, that's not just meant to be, it's entanglement made visible. It's your internal shift rippling out into the external field and drawing back experiences that match. You didn't chase those things. You didn't plan for them, but they showed up because your signal became a match. Synchronicity is not coincidence, it's confirmation. It confirms that the quantum field is listening, that it's arranging itself in response to who you are being, not who you are trying to be or pretending to be, but who you truly are in your dominant state. That's why you can't fake frequency. You can't outthink your emotional signature. You can't hack alignment. You have to embody it. Now consider the repetitive patterns in your life. The relationships that unfold the same way. The career blocks that show up no matter where you work. The financial ceiling you always seem to hit. You try to change the people, the job, the city, but the loop persists. Why? Because it's not about where you are, it's about what you're connected to. The energetic patterns you're carrying are broadcasting a signal. And that signal says to the field, give me more of this. This is why mindset work can only go so far. You can think new thoughts, repeat affirmations, visualize your dream life, but if your emotions remain tethered to fear, doubt, or lack, Your energetic signature doesn't change, and the field mirrors what's real, not what's rehearsed. But the good news is, entanglement works both ways. You can disconnect from old patterns. You can sever the signal. You can consciously begin to entangle with new emotional states, new identities, new timelines. And when you do, the field has no choice but to respond. Not immediately, not always in the way you expect, but inevitably. The moment you begin to think, feel, and act from a new frequency, the possibilities available to you shift. And new people show up, new conversations unfold, new doors open. Not because you forced them, but because you were already connected, and now the connection became clear. It's not about manifesting a better life. It's about remembering that the better life already exists, and you were always connected to it. You just weren't attuned. Everything you want is not far away. It's entangled with you the moment you become a match for it. Not in some magical, one day I'll deserve it kind of way, but in a literal, scientific, energetic way. So if your life feels off track, ask yourself, what am I still emotionally connected to that no longer serves me? What identity am I still entangled with? Who am I being on a vibrational level? Because your reality isn't being created someday, it's being selected now, and you are already connected to all of it. The question is, what are you connecting with? You wake up with the best intentions. You tell yourself this is the day you'll break the cycle, you'll think differently, feel differently, act differently. You've read the books, listened to the podcasts, maybe even meditated that morning. For a few hours, things feel new, fresh, full of possibility. But then something happens. Maybe it's a text, a familiar stress, a comment that hits you in just the wrong way, and suddenly, without even realizing it, you're back in it, back in the loop. The same thoughts, the same reactions, the same emotional gravity pulling you into the same version of yourself you swore you were done with. You're not weak, you're not broken, you're just entangled. This is the identity loop, and it's one of the most persistent forces shaping your reality. Most people think their identity is who they are, but it's not. It's who they've practiced being. It's a collection of thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that have been repeated so many times they became automatic. Not just mentally, but energetically. Your identity emits a frequency. It broadcasts a signal to the quantum field, and that signal determines which version of reality you entangle with. You might believe that your thoughts are private, that your feelings are just passing moods, but the field doesn't make that distinction. It reads everything as signal. So when you carry a belief like, I'm not enough, or nothing ever works out for me, that belief doesn't just affect your mood, it syncs you with the version of life where those things continue to be true. This is why change feels so hard, because you're not just trying to change your behavior, you're trying to untangle yourself from an identity that has woven itself into the very fabric of your reality. The mechanics of it are subtle but powerful. It starts with a belief. That belief generates an emotional state. That emotional state creates a behavior. That behavior produces a result. That result then reinforces the original belief, and the loop continues. Let's say you believe you're not truly worthy of love. You don't walk around saying that out loud, of course, but maybe it lingers in the background, a soft echo from childhood, or a series of disappointments that left a mark. That belief creates a subtle emotional state. Maybe it's anxiety, insecurity, or the constant fear of being abandoned. That emotion shapes your actions. You might overcompensate, pull back, sabotage, or tolerate what you don't deserve. Those actions produce results, unstable relationships, repeated letdowns, and those results confirm the belief. See? I'm not worthy. Loop complete. And the worst part? It all happens below the surface. You're not choosing it consciously. You're entangled with it energetically. So even when you try to change, when you journal, when you visualize, when you affirm, you're still broadcasting from within the same loop. And the field continues to respond to the signal, not the strategy. This is why positive thinking often fails. Because if you're trying to paste new beliefs on top of old emotional wiring, nothing really shifts. You're just layering hope on top of fear. And the deeper frequency always wins. To break the loop, you have to do more than think differently. You have to become different. Not by force, not by effort, but by reattuning your internal state to a new identity. Here's the uncomfortable truth. We become addicted to our loops not because we enjoy them, but because they're familiar. And the subconscious mind worships the familiar. It will choose a predictable hell over an uncertain heaven. It would rather stay in the known than risk the unknown, even if the unknown holds everything you've ever wanted. So when you try to shift, when you imagine a more confident, abundant, or empowered version of yourself, your system resists. Not because it's impossible, but because it's unpracticed. You haven't built the neurological and emotional coherence to sustain that new identity. And so you slip back, not out of failure, but out of habit. Your nervous system is calibrated to the old frequency, and that calibration reinforces the entanglement. It's why you can leave a toxic relationship but still find the same dynamic in a new one. It's why you can double your income but still feel scarcity. It's why you can move to a new city, start a new job, meet new people, and still experience the same internal reality. Because you took your identity with you. This is the trap of the loop. It convinces you that external change is the answer, while quietly pulling you back into the same frequency. And the only way out is in. You have to examine the beliefs that have been running your life. Not just intellectually, but energetically. You have to feel where those beliefs live in your body. You have to trace the emotional patterns that keep reinforcing them, the tightness in your chest, the restlessness in your gut, the stories you tell yourself when no one is listening. These are not random. They are access points. Because once you become aware of them, you can start to choose differently. You can create space between the thought and the reaction. You can begin to introduce new emotional states, not through suppression but through regulation, through breath, through presence, through practice. You don't change your identity by force, you change it by frequency, and frequency is a function of what you repeatedly feel. So the work becomes emotional rehearsal, practicing the state of the version of you who lives beyond the loop. Not once, not occasionally, daily. Until your nervous system starts to believe it, until it becomes familiar, until your signal shifts, and the field begins to organize around the new you. Not the old one trying to be better, but the new one that already is. This is why you feel stuck even when you're trying to grow. Because growth requires identity death, and the ego resists death. It will tell you to slow down, to be realistic, to wait for more evidence. It will whisper every reason why you can't change, because its survival depends on staying in the loop. But you don't have to listen, because another version of you already exists, a version that isn't stuck, that doesn't carry the old beliefs, that moves through life with clarity and certainty. That version is not a fantasy. It's not a projection. It's real. It's just entangled with a different frequency. And the moment you begin to feel as that version feels, think as that version thinks, and act as that version acts, you collapse the distance. You entangle with that identity. And the field responds. Not slowly, not someday, immediately. Because the identity loop only holds power when it's unexamined. Once you see it, truly see it, you can begin to unwind it, to replace it, to transmit something new. You are not your past, you are not your story, you are not your loop. You are the awareness choosing which signal to send next. And that choice, it's the beginning of everything. You've been conditioned to believe that effort is everything, that if you just push harder, work longer, grind more relentlessly than everyone else, success will eventually reward you. It's a story passed down through generations, reinforced by culture, glorified in media. Hustle is the religion of the modern world. And yet, if you're honest with yourself, you've seen the cracks in that model. You've worked hard, you've stayed up late, checked every box, sacrificed sleep, sanity, and peace. And sometimes it still hasn't worked. You've done everything right and still felt behind, still felt blocked, still felt like the universe forgot to send the memo that you've been trying. But what if the problem isn't your effort? What if the problem is that effort is no longer the mechanism that moves reality? Because in the quantum model of existence, it isn't force that changes the field. It's frequency. You're not just a body doing things. You are a field of energy emitting a signal. Every moment you are radiating a frequency through your thoughts, through your emotions, through your internal state. That frequency is not passive, it is generative. It creates feedback, it magnetizes experiences, it tells the universe, this is who I am, and the universe responds accordingly. This is why two people can do the same exact thing and get completely different results. One vibrates from lack, the other from abundance. One acts out of fear, the other from alignment. Same action, different frequency, different outcome. This is the lie of hustle culture, that effort is the path to everything. But the deeper truth is, energy shapes matter. Frequency collapses possibility into form, and when your frequency is misaligned, all the action in the world won't move the needle. You've probably felt it before. When you're in the right state, when you're clear, confident, energized, things flow. Doors open, conversations sink, opportunities find you without you having to chase them. That's not luck, that's coherence. Your internal signal is matching a version of reality that reflects that state back to you. But when you're forcing, pushing, trying to make something happen, while you're vibrating in stress, doubt, or unworthiness, what you often get is more friction, more resistance, more proof that says, see, it's not working. And so you try harder, you double down, you hustle more. But here's the paradox. The more you act from misalignment, the more you reinforce the frequency of not having. You're chasing your goals with the energy of separation, and that energy gets mirrored back in delayed results. Unstable wins, and the exhausting sense that no matter what you do, it's never quite enough. Effort is not the enemy, but effort without frequency is like rowing a boat with no rudder. You might be moving, but you're not steering, and eventually you burn out, wondering why all your striving led you in circles. The shift begins when you stop asking, what do I need to do? And start asking, what do I need to become? Because the quantum field doesn't respond to your to-do list, it responds to your state of being. This is the physics of transformation. In classical mechanics, change is about force. Push an object and it moves. Apply effort and you get results. But in quantum mechanics, change happens through observation, coherence, and alignment. Energy fields interact, synchronize, and collapse into shared reality. That means your inner state is not separate from the world, it is part of the world. It is a force in the field. So when you think a thought, feel an emotion, or hold a belief, you're not just having an internal experience. You're influencing probability. You're shaping the path you're about to walk. Not in theory, in measurable, repeatable ways. Being becomes the new doing. This is why the most powerful shifts often happen in silence, in meditation, in moments where nothing on the surface changes, but everything within you shifts. You go from doubting to knowing, from hoping to being, and then, like clockwork, the outer world begins to reorganize, not because you manipulated it, but because you finally matched it. This is the core of conscious creation. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are, and what you are is defined by your frequency. This is why aligning your energy must come before you take action, not instead of action, but before. Because when you act from a tuned state, your actions carry coherence. They ripple farther, they impact more, they generate momentum, not through force, but through resonance. But here's where most people struggle. They try to change their frequency by changing their circumstances. They think, once I have more money, I'll feel abundant. Once I find love, I'll feel worthy. Once I succeed, I'll finally feel safe. But that's backwards. That's trying to shift the signal by rearranging the mirror. The mirror doesn't change first, you do. And that means generating the frequency of abundance before the money, the feeling of love before the relationship, the energy of success before the breakthrough. Not pretending, not faking, but genuinely practicing those states until they become real within you. That's when reality shifts. Not as a reward, but as a reflection. So how do you begin to live this? You start by noticing, where is your energy right now? Is your body tense? Is your breath shallow? Are your thoughts spinning? That's not neutral. That's a broadcast, and it's shaping your field whether you're aware of it or not. Then you regulate, not by fixing but by tuning. Use breath to slow down. Use presence to anchor. Use intention to select a new state. And then feel it, not just in your head but in your body. Let it become your default. Let it saturate your nervous system. Let it inform your posture, your tone, your choices. You are a walking transmitter, and your life is the echo of your signal. This is why frequency is more powerful than hustle, because frequency works with the field. It partners with unseen intelligence. It allows you to align before you act, so that when you do act, everything conspires with you, not against you. It's not about doing less, it's about doing from the right state, from the right signal, from the identity of the version of you who already lives the life you're reaching for. That version doesn't chase, that version doesn't grind for worth. That version calibrates, aligns, and moves from coherence. And the more often you tune into that state, the more natural it becomes, until one day you stop reaching for that version and realize you've become it. You didn't force it, you didn't hustle your way there, you matched the frequency. And everything else followed. Your thoughts aren't private, they're not confined to the walls of your mind or safely stored inside the folds of your brain. They're not silent whispers no one hears but you. That idea that your thoughts are internal, personal, and invisible is a myth, a comforting illusion passed down from a time before we understood the mechanics of consciousness. In truth, every thought you think is a signal, a transmission, a vibration sent out into the field around you, interacting with everything it touches. It carries frequency, it carries intention, it carries your unique energetic imprint, and the field responds accordingly, not later, now. Because in a universe built on quantum laws, thought is not passive. Thought is creative. And it's shaping the fabric of your reality every time it fires. Your brain isn't just a tool for survival. It's a receiver, a biological antenna that tunes into certain frequencies, processes them into thoughts, and radiates them back out into the quantum field. That field, the invisible matrix of energy that underlies all form, doesn't distinguish between imagination and reality. It responds to frequency, not circumstance, to coherence, not effort, to pattern, not pretense. This means that every thought is more than just a mental event. It's a moment of calibration. Each time you think, you're tuning your consciousness to a certain version of reality. You're stepping onto a timeline, you're aligning with a pattern, and as you hold that thought, especially when you combine it with emotion, you begin to entangle with the outcomes that match its frequency. You've felt this before, even if you didn't have the language for it. You've had a fearful thought spiral into a chain of events that validated it. You've walked into a situation with a preconceived belief, and somehow it played out exactly the way you expected. You told yourself this probably won't work out, and surprise, it didn't. That's not just psychology. That's not just self-fulfilling prophecy. That's tuning. Because when you think something especially repeatedly, you begin to generate an electromagnetic signature that aligns your energy field with that version of events. Not because you're being punished or rewarded, but because the field is literal. It doesn't interpret. It doesn't filter. It reflects. If you constantly think in terms of "I always get rejected," the field begins to shape encounters that validate that belief. If you carry thoughts like "money never sticks around," the frequency of scarcity becomes your broadcast signal, and the timelines available to you shift accordingly. But if you start thinking thoughts like "I am already supported," "I am aligned with abundance," or "my path is unfolding effortlessly," and if those thoughts are felt, believed, and repeated with coherence, the field responds in kind. Not because the words are magic, but because they calibrate your signal to a new harmonic, a new frequency, a new version of life. This is the part traditional thinking misses. Thoughts don't just describe reality, they participate in selecting it. When you hold a thought, especially one charged with emotion, it becomes more than a passing idea, it becomes a tuning fork, and the longer you hold it, the more powerful its signal becomes. You're not just thinking, you're broadcasting. You're locking into a channel just like a radio does when you twist the dial. And once you're tuned in, what you receive matches what you expect. This is why so many people feel trapped in repeating cycles. They think the same thoughts every day, feel the same emotions, and wonder why their lives never change. They're tuned into the same station, playing the same song day after day, hoping that somehow a new melody will play. But it never does. Not because the universe is withholding, but because you haven't changed the frequency. And the frequency is thought-driven. You've been taught that thoughts are personal. But in the quantum model, thoughts are part of the collective field. They're not just happening in your head. They're happening through you. You are both the origin and the amplifier. And as you think, you not only shape your personal timeline, you also influence the shared reality we all experience. When you raise your thinking, When you begin to focus on alignment, love, coherence, creativity, you don't just change your own life. You emit a frequency that uplifts the field around you. This is how consciousness evolves. One thought, one frequency, one recalibration at a time. But here's the challenge. Most of your thoughts are not original. They are conditioned, recycled, passed down, programs inherited from culture, family, trauma, repetition. These thoughts don't come from your soul, they come from your history. And unless you interrupt the cycle, they become your future. This is why awareness is your greatest power, because the moment you notice a thought, you gain the ability to question it, to feel its frequency, to ask, is this thought aligning me with the future I want, or the past I'm trying to escape? Most people never do this. They live in reaction to their thoughts, not realization of them. But you can choose differently. You can use your thoughts as tuning devices, not to control the world, but to align with the version of it you wish to experience. This is the difference between thinking and intentional thinking. One happens through you, the other happens through you. Intentional thought is focused, coherent, emotionally charged, and vibrationally aligned. It isn't just saying I want peace, it's thinking thoughts that generate peace inside your body, and therefore tune your field to the version of reality where peace is mirrored back. It's not just affirming abundance, it's thinking from the version of you who already feels abundant, already trusts the flow, already knows that support is always there. The moment you do this, not once, but consistently, you begin to shift timelines, not because the old world disappears, but because you stop matching it. You lose resonance with chaos, fear, scarcity, and doubt, and those versions of reality, no longer entangled with your signal, begin to fade from your experience. The world doesn't change when you hustle harder. The world changes when you tune differently. And you tune with thought, not any thought, but conscious thought, embodied thought, thought that vibrates from the identity of the future you're claiming. That is how you collapse probability into experience. So the next time you catch yourself thinking in old patterns, pause. Don't just override it, feel it. Notice the frequency, then choose again. Not just for the sake of feeling better, but because you understand now. You are tuning your life, you are selecting your future. And the dial is always in your hands. Your words are not what the universe listens to, not your goals, not your carefully crafted affirmations, not even your vision boards. Because while all of those things carry intention, none of them by themselves carry power. What the universe responds to is your emotion. Emotion is the command signal, the energetic barcode that tells the quantum field what to deliver. It's the unspoken language of creation. And whether you realize it or not, you are speaking it all the time. Every emotion you feel broadcasts a frequency, and that frequency becomes a matching code. When you feel an emotion repeatedly, it creates a kind of resonance, an energetic fingerprint that says, this is who I am, this is what I'm aligned with, this is the timeline I'm entangled with. The field reads that signature and organizes reality around it, not out of judgment, not out of punishment or reward, but out of coherence. Because the field is intelligent, but it's also neutral. It doesn't care what you say you want, it cares what you feel you are. This is why so many people feel stuck in contradiction. They affirm abundance while radiating fear. They speak love while vibrating resentment. They set goals while secretly believing they are not good enough to achieve them. Their words say one thing, but their emotional signature says another, and so, the field responds to the louder signal. The one encoded with more charge, more consistency, more truth. Emotion always speaks louder than thought. This is not just poetic, it's physics. Your heart produces an electromagnetic field thousands of times stronger than your brain, and your emotions directly affect the coherence of that field. When your emotional state is elevated, when you feel love, gratitude, joy, peace, your field becomes coherent. It flows in smooth, harmonious waves. It becomes a beacon that locks into similar frequencies in the quantum realm. But when you're in fear, guilt, anger, or shame, that field becomes erratic, incoherent, scattered, and it matches with timelines that reflect that chaos. This is why high vibrational emotions are not just positive feelings, they are command codes for a higher reality. When you are in emotional alignment, you are giving the universe a clear signal. This is the version of me I am choosing. You're not begging, You're not forcing, you're transmitting, and that transmission shapes what you experience. So ask yourself, what emotional state do you live in most of the time? Because that's the signal that's running the show. You might think you're stuck because of circumstances, but you're more likely stuck in a feedback loop between emotion and reality. You feel unworthy, and so you entangle with outcomes that reinforce that feeling. Those outcomes then generate more evidence, which strengthens the emotion, and the loop continues. The key to breaking it isn't just to think differently, it's to feel differently. But this is where the confusion sets in. People try to force positive emotions, they try to bypass pain, they slap affirmations over anxiety and call it healing. But you can't fake frequency. The field knows the difference between suppressed emotion and authentic alignment. So the path forwards isn't pretending to be high vibe, it's becoming emotionally aware. It's learning to regulate, to integrate, and then to generate elevated states. Not through denial, but through practice. Emotional mastery doesn't mean you never feel pain, it means you don't let pain become your default signature. And it begins with honesty. How do you actually feel when you think about your goals? About your worth? About your future? Do you feel excited or anxious? Free or pressured? Trusting or doubtful? That feeling is the signal, and the field will return to you not what you desire, but what you consistently broadcast. This is why a single moment of genuine gratitude can shift more than weeks of forced positivity, because when you're truly feeling something elevated, you're in coherence. Your heart and mind align, your energy becomes clean, focused, and powerful. You're not trying to attract, you're becoming magnetic. Coherence isn't about perfection, it's about internal alignment. When what you think, what you feel, and who you believe you are all match, you enter a state where reality responds faster, cleaner, and more directly. But when your internal world is fragmented, when you think one thing, feel another, and act from a third, you send a scrambled signal, and the field doesn't know what to reflect, so you get mixed results. Confusing timelines, opportunities that start strong but fizzle out, relationships that feel promising but collapse under emotional inconsistency. This isn't because you're cursed, it's because you're contradictory. Emotional contradiction is the root of delay. You're pressing the gas and the brake at the same time. You're broadcasting two different timelines and wondering why neither fully arrives. But once you drop into emotional coherence, once you feel with clarity, without internal resistance from a place of truth, the field sharpens, the noise quiets, the right people show up, the next step becomes obvious. This is why emotion is the command signal. It's not something to manage or suppress, it's something to master. The emotional body is not just a passenger, it's the pilot. And if your emotional signature remains tied to the past, then no matter how bright your future vision is, you'll keep looping into the same patterns. Because the field doesn't hear what you're dreaming of, it hears what you believe you already are. But here's the good news. Your emotions are trainable. You can rehearse elevated states. You can prime your system for coherence. You can begin to feel gratitude before the evidence arrives, love before the person appears, confidence before the achievement manifests. And when you do, you move from hoping to knowing, from seeking to embodying. That's when the field responds, not out of magic, but out of resonance. Emotion is the selector, the tuner, the command center of your timeline. It holds the keys to who you become, what you experience, and what level of reality you lock into. So stop trying to change your life through effort alone. Start by changing your emotional signal, because the moment your emotions align with your desired identity, the quantum field says understood, and everything begins to shift. When you close your eyes and imagine something vividly, when you see it, feel it, hear it, move through it as if it were real, you're not escaping reality, you're interface with it. Visualization isn't some soft spiritual daydream. It's not wishful thinking. It's quantum engagement, a direct line to the version of reality you want to entangle with. And the more vividly you imagine, the stronger the entanglement becomes. You've been told your imagination is private, internal, and inconsequential unless acted upon. But that's not how reality works. In the quantum model, there is no strict boundary between inner and outer, real and unreal. Reality is built from potential, not from permanence. It exists as a cloud of probabilities until something observes it, interacts with it, emotionally engages with it, and imagination is one of the most potent forms of interaction. When you visualize something with enough clarity, with enough emotional depth, you begin to entangle with it in a very real way. Your nervous system doesn't distinguish much between what's physically happening and what's vividly imagined. The same neural circuits fire. The same hormonal shifts occur. Your brain doesn't ask, is this real? It asks, is this coherent? This is the science behind mental rehearsal. Olympic athletes use it to train their bodies even when they're not on the field. Musicians use it to master complex movements before their fingers ever touch the instrument. And everyday people can use it to rehearse new versions of themselves, to imprint new timelines into their field. Studies in neuroscience have shown that when a person visualizes lifting weights, for example, they can increase muscular strength even without moving their body. When someone visualizes playing the piano, the brain lays down neural patterns almost identical to actual practice. This isn't magic. It's neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to rewire itself based on focused, repeated experience. And visualization, when done with emotion and specificity, is experience. What does that mean for you? It means that every time you visualize your future self, confident, at peace, successful, in love, thriving, you're not just fantasizing. You're rehearsing the energetic and neurological identity of that version of you. You're creating quantum alignment. You're laying down new neural tracks, new emotional patterns, new energetic habits. You're tuning. But here's the catch. The visualization must be felt, not just seen. Too many people approach visualization like a slideshow. They look at mental images, like pictures on a screen. That's not enough. You must be in the scene. You must feel what it feels like to be there, to breathe in that version of reality, to speak from that identity, to move as if it's already true. Your senses must be engaged, your emotions activated, your belief willingly suspended. Because once you feel it as real, even for a moment, your body begins to believe it. And once your body believes it, your signal changes. And once your signal changes, the field begins to reconfigure around that frequency. Visualization becomes a form of quantum entanglement, a process of connecting with the desired version of reality through imagination and emotion. You're not asking the universe for something to happen. You're rehearsing what already exists in a parallel potential. And in doing so, you draw it closer, you collapse the distance. This is not spiritual metaphor. This is measurable biology and field mechanics. When you imagine a new future consistently, you begin to prune away the old self neurologically. The circuits that supported your past identity weaken. They lose energy. And the circuits that support the new identity begin to fire more often. Neurons that fire together wire together. Over time, your brain begins to embody the new self as familiar, as true, as real. And as your brain shifts, so does your energy. The field reads your new signal, it receives your updated emotional code, and you become a match for experiences that were previously outside your resonance. Visualization, when done properly, is not escapism. It's a quantum selection tool, a way to interface with reality at the level where it's still fluid, unformed, and full of possibility. And by consistently engaging with a specific vision, one that's elevated, coherent, emotionally aligned, you begin to entangle with that version of your life until it moves from potential to experience. But most people don't realize this. They visualize once, maybe twice, and then give up when nothing happens. That's because they're still visualizing from the identity of someone who doesn't believe it. They're looking at the dream like a movie they don't star in. They're not entering it. They're not rehearsing being. They're watching from a distance, and the field responds to that distance with delay. To bridge the gap, you must become the version of you who belongs in that vision, not someday, but now. That means when you visualize, you don't just see the outcome, you feel the identity. You feel what it's like to walk into a room with that confidence, to make choices from that clarity, to wake up in the body, the home, the relationship, the peace of that future self. You train your nervous system to know it before it happens, because once you know it in here, the field makes it known out there. And yes, this takes consistency, but not discipline in the way you've been taught. It takes devotion, to sit with your vision each day, not out of desperation, but from reverence, from play, from love. You return to your future self like you would a sacred friend. You merge with them again and again until the line between future and present disappears. And then the universe does what it always does, it mirrors your frequency. But here's what's most profound. You don't have to visualize a mansion, or millions of dollars, or some idealized image. What matters is coherence. You could visualize yourself peaceful and safe in a small home, or deeply fulfilled in your purpose, or surrounded by love and authenticity. The scale doesn't matter. The alignment does. Because when you're emotionally fused with the version of life that feels most true to your soul, the field becomes a collaborator, possibility becomes probability, and the improbable becomes your new normal. This is the untold power of imagination, not as fantasy but as frequency. So don't underestimate the quiet moments when you close your eyes and dream. That's not just wishful thinking, that's quantum navigation. That's you rehearsing the signal. That's you selecting your future. You're not stuck because of where you are. You're stuck because of where you keep returning in your mind. The past, your personal history, isn't just a story you remember. It's a frequency you still carry, a signal still active in your emotional field. And every time you revisit a painful moment, a limiting belief or a version of yourself that didn't know better, you re-entangle with that version. You relink to that timeline. You echo the signal, and the field answers back. This is why letting go of the past is not about forgetting. It's about unwiring. It's about detaching your identity from the emotional signatures that no longer serve who you're becoming. Because if you don't, no matter how much you try to evolve, those old frequencies will keep pulling you into familiar loops, and those loops feel like fate, like cycles. But they're just rehearsals of what was mistaken for what still is. Your memories are powerful, but not because they're accurate. In fact, most of your memories are reconstructions. Each time you recall them, you're not replaying a moment. You're recreating it through your current emotional lens, and that reconstruction gets wired back into your brain as if it were real. Over time, your nervous system becomes addicted to the emotional chemistry of the past. You don't just remember heartbreak, you feel it. You don't just think about failure, you relive it. And the body keeps score. When this happens often enough, your body starts to expect the past. It becomes your baseline, your emotional home. And because your body is a transmitter, it broadcasts that signal outward. The quantum field, always listening, always responding, begins to mirror that expectation. Not because you're being punished, but because you're still tuned into that version of self. This is how identity becomes entangled with history, not through events, but through emotional repetition. Think of the times you've said things like, "That's just how I am," or "This always happens to me," or "I've always struggled with this." Those aren't statements, they're energetic contracts. Agreements made with past versions of you that you haven't yet outgrown, because you haven't fully released them. But releasing doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. It means you stop feeling from it. It means you stop using it as a reference point for who you are. The pain you experienced, the betrayal you endured, the mistakes you made, they happened. They shaped you. But they are not you. They were events in time. You are the awareness that observed them. And the moment you realize that, you begin to take your power back. The challenge is that emotional memories are sticky. They're not stored just in your mind, but in your body, your muscles, your posture, your breath. You might tell yourself you've moved on, but if your body still tenses at the thought of what happened, if your heart still races at the memory of that person or place or failure, you're still entangled, and as long as that entanglement remains active, it shapes the timeline you're allowed to access. This is why change often feels like sabotage. You begin to step into a new self, more confident, more open, more empowered, and suddenly you feel anxious, exposed, like something's off. That's not your intuition telling you to stop. That's your body protesting the unfamiliar. It's your past identity saying, "We don't know how to exist in this new state yet." And in that moment, you have a choice. Collapse back into the old self, or breathe through the discomfort and keep going. To detach from the past is to interrupt the signal. To become aware of when your thoughts start looping back into history and choose not to follow them. It's not resistance, it's redirection. You gently bring your awareness back to the present. Back to the breath, back to who you're becoming. Because the past can only live through your attention. The moment you stop feeding it energy, its signal begins to fade. Not because you've denied it, but because you've transcended it. But here's the deeper layer. Sometimes we hold on to the past not because we love it but because it defines us. We've built identity around the pain, around the struggle, around the survivor narrative. And to let go of that story feels like death. Because who are you without your history? Who are you if you're not the person who was wronged or failed or rejected? The fear, that detachment will leave you empty. But the truth is, detachment makes space. It clears the static so the signal of your higher self can come through. It opens the door to new versions of you, ones not defined by pain but by potential, ones not built from memory but from intention. You don't lose the lesson when you let go of the pain. You don't erase the wisdom when you release the wound. You carry the gold and leave the weight. That's the alchemy. And yes, it takes practice. It means catching yourself when you're tempted to rehearse the old story, when you're about to complain, blame, or relive. It means choosing silence instead of self-pity, choosing breath instead of reaction, choosing presence instead of replay. And each time you do, the neural connections to the past weaken, the emotional charge diminishes, the grip loosens, and one day you remember the memory, but it no longer controls you. You've changed your relationship to it. You've reclaimed your power. This is the essence of emotional sovereignty, the ability to hold your past with compassion, but no longer as a compass, to thank it for the role it played, and then walk forward with an untethered heart. You are not your memories. You are not your trauma. You are not your history. You are the consciousness that outlived it all, and from that place you can select a new timeline, not built from who you were, but from who you now choose to be. Detachment is not abandonment, it's liberation, and once you free your energy from the gravity of the past, you'll discover the version of you that was always waiting, just beyond the loop. There's a version of you right now, living the life you dream about, not hypothetically, not as a concept, as a real, tangible frequency within the field of infinite possibility. That version is not ahead of you in time. It's not years away. It's not out of reach. It exists in parallel, already coded into the quantum matrix, waiting for one thing: resonance. You don't have to become that version of you in the way we've been taught, by grinding, striving, or endlessly fixing yourself. You have to tune into it, match its energy, and embody its state of being now. Not after you achieve the goal, not once the external proof shows up. Now. Because the field doesn't respond to delay, it responds to coherence. This is the essence of identity physics. Reality organizes around who you're being. You don't create success by chasing it. You experience success when you embody the self that already lives it. You don't attract love by needing it. You attract it when you become the version of yourself who already feels loved, open, and emotionally safe. The question is not, how do I get there? The question is, who must I be to meet that version of me now? This is not performance. This is precision. Identity is not a fixed thing, it's a frequency, and your body, your emotions, your thoughts. Those are the instruments. When they're in tune, you become a perfect resonance match for the parallel you that already exists in that elevated timeline. And here's the part no one talks about. Every time you imagine that future version of yourself, wealthy, confident, radiant, peaceful, that vision is not fantasy. It's a mirror, a reflection from the quantum field showing you who you already are beneath the conditioning, the fear, and the old programming. It's a breadcrumb from your higher self saying, this is available, this is you. If you're willing to stop being the version you've been rehearsing, that's where the mirrored self-activation technique comes in. It's not complicated, but it is powerful. You start by creating intimate connection with that parallel version of you, the one who already lives the life, the one who's past the healing, past the trying, fully embodied, integrated, certain. Close your eyes and let them appear in your mind, not as a goal, but as a being. You meet them, you feel their presence, you notice how they breathe, how they stand, how they speak. You look into their eyes and ask, how do you move through life? What do you know that I've forgotten? And then you mirror them, not someday, now. You borrow their posture, their energy, their certainty. You begin to carry yourself like them, make decisions like them, speak like them, not as a game, but as a tuning process. Each time you do, your energy shifts, your signal changes, the field takes notice. You're not faking it, you're activating it. And when doubt creeps in, and it will, you return to the mirror. You remind yourself that this version of you is not a stretch. It's a homecoming. It's the most natural expression of who you are without distortion. The gap between you and them is only your hesitation to embody what you already know is true. But sustaining this shift requires consistency. Not perfection, consistency. You don't become the parallel you by visiting them once in meditation and then returning to the habits of your old identity. You become them by practicing the new frequency until it replaces the old one. And yes, it will feel unfamiliar. Your body will want to go back to the known. Your nervous system might protest, saying, "This isn't who we are." That's not a sign to stop. That's a sign you're changing. Because transformation doesn't feel natural at first. It feels foreign. You're stepping out of a well-worn groove and into a new signal, and that takes repetition. Each time you walk into a room, ask yourself, how would the parallel me show up here? Each time you face a decision, ask, what would that version of me choose? Each time you feel fear or hesitation, ask, what does my highest self already know? Then embody it. Not forcefully, lovingly. It's not about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about releasing the version of you that never aligned with your truth in the first place. The anxious version. The one who waited for permission. The one who over-explained, over-apologized, over-performed. That identity was survival. This identity, your parallel self, is sovereignty. And the more you return to them, the more your nervous system begins to recognize their energy as home. Eventually, the old self fades. Not because you fought it, but because you stopped feeding it. This is how the quantum field works. The more you broadcast the energy of who you choose to be, the more your reality begins to sync with that broadcast. People treat you differently. New opportunities arise. You make choices you never would have considered. And it doesn't feel like effort, it feels like alignment. Because the field doesn't reward you for striving, it reflects you once you become a vibrational match. This is the secret behind every quantum leap, every identity shift, every seemingly sudden success. It wasn't luck. It was alignment finally made visible. A frequency matched so cleanly that the external world had no choice but to reflect it. The only reason your life hasn't caught up yet is because you're still toggling between timelines. One day you feel empowered, the next you return to doubt. One moment you're in embodiment, the next you're negotiating with your old self. That's okay. That's part of the process. But the invitation is this: choose the new version more often than the old. And when you fall back, don't shame yourself. Recalibrate, realign. Remember that your parallel self never left. They're always there, just one shift in frequency away. They are not the future, they are the now that's been waiting for your permission. And once you give that permission, once you truly embody the you who already knows, already trusts, already walks with certainty, the world bends to meet you, not because you finally deserve it, but because you finally remembered who you've always been. Chaos doesn't just show up in your life randomly. It's the natural result of incoherence, of your thoughts going one way, your emotions another, and your actions spinning in a third. And yet, most people try to fix chaos by doing more, by pushing harder, by seeking a breakthrough big enough to override the mess. But the truth is, chaos can't be conquered with intensity. It can only be neutralized with coherence. Coherence is alignment. It's the state in which your mind, body, and spirit are synchronized, speaking the same language, moving to the same rhythm, transmitting one clear frequency to the quantum field. It's not just about feeling calm. It's about becoming a powerful broadcast tower, stable enough that the field begins to reorganize around your signal. Incoherence happens when you live fragmented, when you think about what you don't want, feel stressed about what hasn't happened, and act from a place of fear or urgency. Even if you're taking action, your signal is fractured. You might speak affirmations, but your body is tight. You might meditate, but your thoughts are racing. That internal static weakens your field influence. It sends mixed messages into the quantum field, and the result is often more delay, more resistance, more friction. But when you enter coherence, even for a few minutes, the impact is exponential. Coherence is a biological and energetic state. It's measurable. It's not mystical poetry. When your heart and brain are in sync, your electromagnetic field becomes harmonious. The waves it produces are smooth, stable, powerful. This alignment boosts your clarity, enhances decision-making, and, most importantly, amplifies your influence on the quantum field. You've probably felt this before. Moments where everything just clicks, where time slows down, where you're fully present, your body relaxed, your mind quiet, and your intuition sharp. That's coherence. And it's not random. It's trainable. It's the byproduct of regulating your inner world. The HeartMath Institute has done extensive research on this. They've shown that when your heart rate variability becomes smooth and ordered, your brain enters a state of coherence. That synchronization creates a state of peak performance, not just mentally but energetically. Your thoughts become clearer, your emotional state becomes more stable, and the field around you responds more quickly and accurately to your signal. Why? Because coherence means clarity, and the quantum field mirrors what's clear. Think of the universe like a tuning fork. When your signal is chaotic, it reflects distortion, but when your signal is coherent, it vibrates in harmony with the potential timeline you're aligned with. That's why small, consistent emotional states, gratitude, peace, joy, are far more powerful than momentary spikes of inspiration followed by emotional collapse. We've been taught to chase highs, to wait for breakthroughs, to believe that transformation happens in some big dramatic moment. But real transformation, quantum transformation, happens in small, repeatable states of coherence, because those states shape your baseline, and your baseline is what the universe reads most. You don't have to feel euphoric to shift your reality. You don't have to meditate for hours or visualize your future with systematic clarity. What you need is to become stable, grounded, consistent, to enter into brief moments of emotional and energetic coherence every day, until they become your new normal. That might look like a 3-minute breath session where you drop into gratitude, or a short visualization where you feel yourself already being who you're becoming, or a conversation you pause before having, asking yourself, am I aligned with the version of me I'm choosing today? These may seem small, but, repeated often enough, they build a coherent field. And that field becomes your superpower. Coherence doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean you never feel off or reactive. It means you return to center more quickly. You recover your signal. You become aware of misalignment and you retune instead of spiraling. You stop reinforcing emotional chaos and begin reinforcing energetic stability. This is why rituals matter, not because they're magical, but because they create rhythmic coherence. When you do something grounding every day, journaling, breathwork, silence, movement, you're signaling to your body, this is who we are now, and the body, ever obedient, begins to stabilize around that identity. The result? You move through life with more ease. The field begins to mirror your coherence with synchronicity. People respond to you differently. Opportunities feel like flow, not force. And, best of all, your nervous system starts to trust you again. You're no longer the source of your own chaos. But here's the paradox. Coherence feels uneventful. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it doesn't feel like fireworks, which is why so many people underestimate its power. They chase peak states, thinking those are the signs of change, when in truth, those peaks mean little, without a coherent foundation. It's your baseline energy, not your peak performance, that determines what you attract and sustain. That's why you might manifest something from a high-vibe state, only to lose it when your baseline emotional frequency pulls you back into survival mode. The field didn't betray you, it simply responded to the version of you that's dominant. So if you want lasting change, you have to stabilize your signal, not by avoiding emotion, but by becoming intentional with it. Not by forcing coherence, but by gently returning to it. Coherence is built through self-awareness, through moments where you catch the misalignment early, where you feel the stress rise but choose breath, where you sense the fear but choose presence, where you hear the old thought but speak a new one instead. Every one of those moments is a vote for coherence, a quantum selection, and the field listens. Eventually, your life stops looking like a series of emergencies and starts looking like a rhythm. Challenges still come, but they don't knock you off course. You don't spiral into chaos because coherence has become your resting state. You've trained your system to return to truth faster than it returns to fear. And the field? It begins to trust you too. Not trust as in judgment, but resonance. You've become dependable. Your signal no longer fluctuates based on circumstance, and that stability turns you into a magnet. Not a chaser, not a struggler, but a grounded, clear, coherent presence that the field can organize around with precision. You don't need a breakthrough to become this. You just need to commit to coherence, a little more presence, a little more breath, a little more alignment each day. Because in a universe that mirrors frequency, the most consistent signal always wins. Life doesn't lie to you. It doesn't hide its messages. It doesn't withhold clues. Every moment you experience is a reflection, an exact, unfiltered mirror of the signal you're sending out, even when you're unaware of it. Not as punishment, not as fate, but as feedback. Constant, responsive, immediate feedback from the quantum field responding to your most dominant frequency. Your outer world is your broadcast report card. This can be uncomfortable to realize, because it means that your circumstances aren't just things that happen to you, they are reflections of you, of your beliefs, your emotions, your self-concept, your unresolved stories. The field isn't selecting randomly, it's mirroring your signal with mathematical precision, not because it wants to show you how far you have to go, but because it's inviting you to notice where you're still operating from the past. That's what the mirror does, it reflects, not to judge, but to reveal. So when something painful shows up in your life, when a relationship crumbles, when a plan fails, when a trigger flares, it's not evidence that you're broken or behind. It's data. It's a direct message saying, here's the signal you're still broadcasting, not to shame you, but to empower you to change. Most people never see it this way. They experience life at the level of reaction. Something goes wrong and they either blame the world, collapse inward, or try to fix the external. But reaction never changes the pattern. It only prolongs it. Because the mirror doesn't shift until you do. That's the first key. Your life is not defining you, it's diagnosing you. If your outer world feels chaotic, it doesn't mean you're doomed, it means your inner world is fragmented, torn between the new self you're stepping into and the old self you keep feeding. If the same challenges keep repeating, it doesn't mean you're cursed. It means the lesson embedded in that pattern hasn't been fully integrated, the signal hasn't changed. But this is where your power lives, because you are not the reflection, you are the emitter. You are the source of the frequency, the outer world is just the echo. And once you shift the source, the echo must follow. This is not positive thinking. This is not bypassing. This is not about pretending everything is okay. This is about taking radical ownership of your field. You stop waiting for the world to prove something new to you, and instead, you become the proof. You stop looking for validation and start generating vibration. Let's say your outer world reflects scarcity, lack of money, lack of time, lack of opportunity. Most people respond by chasing towards more work, more hustle, more striving, but chasing scarcity from within only multiplies it outside, because the frequency hasn't changed. But if you pause, if you go inward, if you breathe and ask yourself, what belief am I broadcasting that this reflection is showing me? You start to reclaim your power. Maybe the belief is, there's never enough, or I'm not supported, or I have to earn my worth. And once you identify it, you can begin the real work. Shifting the inner emitter. This doesn't mean pretending you're wealthy when you're stressed. It means starting to feel the frequency of sufficiency, practicing trust in small moments, generating gratitude for what's already flowing. And over time, that new frequency becomes more stable, more familiar, and the outer world, just doing its job, starts to reflect it. The mirror always updates, but only when the signal does. This is why spiritual alignment is not about detachment from reality. It's about engaging with it more honestly, seeing every encounter, every conflict, every delay as an indicator of internal data. What am I really expecting? Who am I being right now? What part of me is being mirrored back? Even the smallest moments, someone interrupting you, an opportunity falling through, a stranger's random comment, can hold insight if you're paying attention. Your outer life is a feedback loop, and the more conscious you become of the loop, the more power you gain to shift it. Because when you stop treating reality as rigid and start treating it as responsive, the game changes. This doesn't mean you control every detail of life, it means you influence the lens through which life meets you. You might not choose every event, but you absolutely tune the frequency that filters how those events unfold and, more importantly, how you respond to them. And that response becomes your next broadcast, which becomes your next reality. And the cycle continues. Most people live inside a mirror they never clean. They walk through patterns coated in old beliefs, unresolved trauma, unconscious stories, and they wonder why nothing changes. But the mirror can't reflect clarity if you don't polish the lens. Polishing the mirror means becoming aware of your emotional defaults, noticing where you retreat, where you lash out, where you shrink. It means catching yourself in a reaction and asking, what's this showing me about my current state? It's not about fixing the mirror, it's about shifting you. When you do this consistently, your world begins to reformat. Slowly at first, then rapidly, because coherence compounds. Once your signal becomes consistent, the reflection stabilizes, the chaos settles, the triggers fade. You stop living in reaction and begin living in creation. But the mirror doesn't wait for perfection. It responds to intention. Even the smallest shift in your inner world, one breath, one change in perspective, one elevated emotion, sends out a new ripple, and that ripple reorganizes the field. This is the path of conscious evolution. You stop waiting for your life to give you permission to feel better, and instead, you choose the feeling, and life begins to respond. You stop needing evidence to believe. You start believing, and the evidence appears. You stop treating circumstances as definitions of who you are. You begin to see them as messages asking, are you still this version? Or are you ready to upgrade the signal? Because life is always willing to shift. But only after you do. This is the moment where everything you've explored, remembered, and realized converges. All the fragments of thought, of frequency, of identity come together into one simple, powerful truth. You were never meant to manage reality. You were meant to generate it. Not from force, not from fear, but from deep alignment with the quantum truth of who you are. Quantum living isn't a concept. It's a way of being, a way of existing in a world that no longer controls you but reflects you. A way of choosing your inner state so deliberately, so consistently, that life itself becomes a mirror you trust. Because at the root of all this is choice. Not the surface-level choices, what job to take, what words to say, what time to wake up, but the deeper ones, the ones that define your frequency. The choice to no longer think from your past, the choice to stop feeling from your wounds, the choice to tune your energy not to what's familiar, but to what's possible. Quantum living begins the moment you stop chasing outcomes and start embodying the identity that already lives them. This isn't about faking confidence or pretending you're abundant. It's about embodying the version of you who no longer doubts, who no longer waits for permission, who no longer performs for worth. It's the version who is, without apology, without negotiation, without delay. And that embodiment starts now. Not when the money arrives. Not when the relationship appears. Not when your problems disappear. Now. Because now is all the quantum field ever listens to. It's only here, in this present moment awareness, that you can shift your vibration, and it's only through vibration that you shift your reality. So if you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. You're not broken. You're not behind. You're not missing anything. You've just been conditioned to live in delay, to outsource your power to conditions, to manage your life like a puzzle instead of remembering that you are the source of every piece. You manage what you don't trust. And now you're being called to trust, not blindly, energetically, to trust the version of you that already exists in the timeline of peace, purpose, and expansion, to trust the quantum field that's already coded with the path, to trust your ability to shift, not everything at once, but from within, one frequency at a time, because the truth is, you're already living in a quantum universe. Every thought, every emotion, every expectation is already entangled with timelines you can't yet see. The only question is whether you're choosing those timelines on purpose or out of unconscious habit. That's the crossroads. Do you keep living as a reaction to the field, or do you become its co-creator? When you decide to live quantum, you stop needing your 5 senses to confirm what you already know internally. You stop waiting for outer evidence. You stop using logic to explain magic. You start with alignment, and you let the universe respond. You become the cause. And when you're the cause, reality becomes fluid. That doesn't mean every moment is easy. It doesn't mean you're exempt from contrast or challenge, but it means you no longer collapse into those moments. You meet them differently. You respond from coherence. You navigate from knowing. You create from stability. Is the shift from management to mastery, from micromanaging your circumstances to mastering your signal, from controlling every detail to trusting the field, from being ruled by the nervous system of your past to living through the consciousness of your future. Quantum living is not about becoming superhuman. It's about finally being human with your energy intact. It means feeling emotions but not being ruled by them, having thoughts but not believing all of them, making decisions not from fear but from frequency. It's a return to your natural state, and the roadmap is already within you. You've learned how thoughts aren't just private events, they're tuning forks. You've remembered how emotions are command signals, not byproducts. You've seen how visualization isn't fantasy but interface. You've explored how the past doesn't define you unless you carry its charge. Now, the final step is the integration of it all, not by mastering it overnight but by practicing one thing consistently. Awareness. Awareness of who you're being. Awareness of the signal you're sending. Awareness of the identity you're rehearsing. Every time you shift into coherence, you align. Every time you catch a thought and choose a better one, you align. Every time you feel gratitude with no reason or trust with no evidence, you align. And those micro moments compound. They become your new baseline. And from that baseline, a new world begins to reflect. This isn't about perfection. It's about resonance. It's about waking up each day and asking, who am I entangled with today? The old self or the parallel me that already lives my highest timeline? And if it's the old self, you forgive. You breathe, you shift, because nothing is static, not even your past. Quantum living is remembering that every moment is a doorway, every breath is a reset, every thought is a choice, and your reality, it's never fixed. It's a reflection in motion, so stop waiting for proof. Stop waiting for guarantees. Stop waiting for everything to make sense before you shift. Shift first. Live the frequency now. And the field will align not as a reward but as a match. Because the moment you choose to embody the truth of who you are fully, unapologetically and consistently, is the moment quantum living begins, right here, right now, through you.